Hello, everyone. In today's episode, I'm joined with Carole, and in today's episode, me and Carole are going to be talking about autism, and it's going to be a really nice episode today because we're going to be hearing about all the wonderful things Carole does within the autism community. So, thank you, Carole, for coming on today, and it's going to be really nice to speak to you.
Thanks, Mason. I'm really excited. And thank you for inviting me. I am loving your show. I've really enjoyed it. So I am just thrilled to be here.
Yeah. I saw the stuff you've been doing on your pages on Instagram, and I think it's great. Um, I like all the wonderful things that you do.
Well, thanks. I tend to focus specifically as a late identified ADHD autistic myself. I didn't discover I was autistic till I was 39, almost 40. I was like 2 months from turning 40. So my community and my advocacy work, actually, and education work, focuses specifically on late identified autistic and ADHD adults. And because chronic cycle burnout was one of the biggest contributing factors to my quality of life for decades, and I didn't realize it, one of my biggest focus areas is on autistic burnout. And it is very different from neurotypical burnout in that autistic and ADHD burnout involves oftentimes a loss of skills or abilities, sometimes that are regained at a lesser degree, or that can be permanently lost, which when I came across that particular research information, terrified me because I worked so hard to gain all the skills and abilities that I built up in my lifetime. To hit burnout and then lose them was very scary. And so I knew I had to figure out a way to be able to identify my sensory needs, what my routine and schedule needs were, plus the novelty that my dopamine hit ADHD brain needs to sort of be stimulated, and find that harmony so that I stayed off that chronic cycle burnout trap.
Yeah. I think it's great. As you was diagnosed, like you said, like 39, 40 years old, which which you don't find like a lot of autistic people do. Like it's good that like you're focusing your work on like people around that age and being an adult getting diagnosed with autism.
It was out of necessity, Mason, if you want to know the truth. That was 8 years ago when I was first identified as being autistic. I learned in my mid to late 20s that I had ADHD. And that was a good piece of the puzzle, but it didn't answer all the other questions that were still left sort of hanging. And then when I was going through the diagnostic process with my son, who was 10 years old at the time, that's how I discovered through the neuropsychologist who was diagnosing my son, who looked at me and said, "Hey, you were missed." And in my very literal autistic brain, I went, "No, I wasn't. I'm right here. Nobody missed me." And he looked at me and kind of nodded like, "Yep, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Yep." And then at that point, I had to process it a little bit. And then I was like, okay, let's dive into this. And learning that I was autistic was that those missing parts, that key that unlocked the rest of the understanding of who I am as a human. And that has really been transformative. It's been life-changing in ways I never could have imagined. And when you're a late identified adult, there aren't services, there aren't things available for us. There, if you're 18 or younger, there's all kinds of service, occupational service. I mean, all types of things that are available. When you're an adult, they just don't exist. And instead of handing me a report that says, "Here, you're autistic, these are the other challenges that you have," which was kind of cool to discover that there's other things that I was also struggling with. But there weren't any resources. There wasn't anything to help me navigate this late identification to say, hey, you're going to go through a grieving process now that you have this new lens to look back over 4 decades of your life and not beat yourself up over it, not go down the rabbit hole of shame and all of the things that happen, but that's a sort of normal progression, that's normal to experience that and it's okay, but don't do it by yourself. Have some friends that have experienced something similar to talk to. And I didn't know that. I navigated all of this for the first 6 years by myself, just basically bare knuckling it out because I was so desperate to get to the other side, because there was just something in me that kept saying, there's something better. There's something on the other side of this. There was this glimmer of hope at the other end of the tunnel. And I kept going, I know it's not the light, and I know the train's not going to hit me. I know it's that glimmer of hope, right?
Yeah, I think like I know what you mean. Like you're going to get more support if you're like 18, 19, 20 years old than you are like your 40s, because like it's going to be much harder, and I suppose you have to, more things aren't supported for you and stuff. So it must be like, I suppose on an other side of things, that you probably have more idea what autism was at that age, rather than like you
Not at
might
all.
yeah
Not at all. I
Huh.
was going into it blind on that.
Okay.
And that's the difference too. It's I have found that, a lot of the clients that I do serve and coach, so a lot of them were early identified, 9, 10 or earlier. But we have the same struggles as adults, especially if you were identified, 10 or 15 years ago. The resources and the knowledge and the awareness of how being autistic impacts your daily life just wasn't talked about then. So a lot of early identified autistics are having the same struggles as those of us who are late identified. And as a late identified autistic, we do tend to have a lot more baggage with us. We have a lot more to unpack because we have spent so much longer in our life masking and camouflaging and suppressing our inner needs for decades. And there's a lot of trauma that comes from that. And as autistic people, we are more susceptible to trauma and PTSD and complex PTSD. So there's a lot of navigating, and there's a lot of unpacking that comes with late identification. There's still a lot of things that even early identified people still have challenges with that are similar, but there's some differences as well.
Yeah. I would say with my autism, I'm quite sensory. Like I don't like noise. I like noises, like if someone's eating, like I'm next to someone and it's loud, and like not loud to them but loud to me. So and then in my mind I'm thinking, I'm eating this food and I'm not making as much noise as you, and we're eating the same thing.
Oh my gosh, my friend Dawn and I laugh about this because we're both the same way. We're really sensitive to other people's chewing noises and things like drinking. Oh my gosh, when somebody's a loud swallower, it drives me crazy. I'm like, I just want to claw my face or your face off. It is like nails on the chalkboard. It's like, ooh, I love it because Dawn will even say, can't you just quiet your face?
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of us. There's like our sound sensitivity is really, really tuned into certain things. But what's interesting, I'm going to ask you this, Lynn Mason. So have you found with your sensory sensitivity, so for a lot of us, we love really loud music. And if it's in our headset or it's in our space, it's totally cool. It's not loud enough, but like, the fan in the other room is too loud.
Yeah. That does it. Like, it's quite annoying. Like, if you're listening to your own not music, because I do like my music. Like to like on Spotify, just listen to a good soundtrack. And then you hear someone else that interrupts that, and then it just irritates you, and then you just get a little bit annoyed about it.
It does happen.
Yeah, and like if because I quite like gaming sometimes, and if I'm loud, like so if I'm loud or something, I'll get told downstairs, don't be as loud because you're being too loud. And of course I'm thinking I'm not loud. I'm just I'm just playing a game. I might shout a little bit if I'm doing something wrong, but it's quite funny.
Yeah, it's such a common experience for so many of us. We have this internal gauge. It's like, okay, this is normal sound, and this is too loud a sound, and this is too soft a sound. and it's totally different from everybody else's. It's like, hey, you're talking so loud. Can you like bring it down a couple decibels, you know? And it's like, I'm not talking loud. What are you talking about? To me, it's normal.
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, it's like another thing is like I like my space, so don't like to be too close to people. So I suppose that's a plus with when people were in the UK, like the rules were to social distancing, and so I was happy with that because people had to go near me.
I have to say that that was quite a common relief. Many of us have talked about, we're like, I love the social distancing. It's actually what I prefer and wish would continue forever and ever in perpetuity. You know, even if you bury my body, make sure I'm spaced accordingly.
Yeah,
I want lots of space, even if I'm dead.
yeah, it's like if I go to an event, um, like for example, I would like to keep my own space. I wouldn't like to be on top of people. Or like if people are leaning over, I'll move out of their way and I'll just find another seat, even if it's not my seat, because I'd rather be somewhere with more room other than people like crowding me.
Yep. And it's interesting, you know, my approach to teaching and sharing information in my community from Mind Your Autistic Brain, the why behind our brain, the neuroscience, the functionality, because our neurotype is different. And it's not just our brains that process information differently. It's also our bodies, our physical bodies. And one of the very interesting things is that for our neurotype, you know, as an autistic ADHD person, I tend to use more of the older part of my brain, that what we call the hunter brain. And so for many of us, that experience is very similar. And so with the hunter brain, you are very clued into movements and sound and any new visual stimuli in your environment, because our brain does two things. Number one, our brain seeks to keep us safe first and foremost so that we can continue to exist. Number two, our brain seeks to conserve energy, because our energy is something that we have to be very careful about. And it's a lot of things that I teach, and rest being more than sleep and the 7 areas of rest. But when we are trying to conserve energy on the subconscious level, our brain automates things. Those automations become our habits. And what's interesting is, like, when we're in social situations or we're in public spaces, our hunter brain is on the subconscious level seeking to keep us safe. So we are hyper aware of sounds and movements and objects and people, because our brain is processing it first as a potential threat.
Yeah.
And it can create a lot of anxiety when your brain is wired as a hunter brain. Now, we live in an industrialized society and have been for over 100 years. And what's interesting is that the neurotypical brain has evolved to have suppressed those instincts, those hunter instincts. And so it's like, oh yeah, there's a person, you know, we've adapted to have less personal space, you know, closer quarters living and things like that over this industrial evolution that we've existed in from a sociological aspect. So what's really interesting is that our brains are still functioning on survival. And so that natural instinct in an industrialized society is very unique. And it's interesting to look at how there's so many of us that experience public places and spaces that way. And somehow we're made to feel like it's wrong or we're doing it wrong, when in actuality, we're not. We're doing it the way we were wired to be. We're doing it the way we were created to be originally.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like with autism, like like when I was diagnosed, I was 9, so I was pretty young, and like I didn't know that. Like most people, when you get diagnosed, you don't know anything really. And when I was at school, I always said that autism was, I thought it was a bad thing, and because I probably like I wouldn't ask for help if I needed it, and I wasn't really confident really. So as I got older, I got more confident. I would hope so, otherwise I won't be speaking to you now. um, but yeah, I got more confident. I got to do different things. I made my own confidence building program for young people around like our school, and so they have more confidence probably than I did when I was younger, because I would probably fib about if I needed help. I would just say no because I didn't want to say that most people in the class knew what they were doing and I didn't. I was like, especially if you're reading a book, I wouldn't be thinking of the book at all. I'll be thinking of other things, and like and then when the teacher says what part are we on, and then questions after you answer the questions after you read the book, and I wouldn't know what's going on. Like that's where I much prefer, if like for Harry Potter, for example, I much prefer the films and reading books.
Yeah. Well, we all onboard information in our own unique way. We all have a preferred learning style, and that can be in so many different aspects. And it can also change your preferred learning style. Just because that might meet your needs and where you are right now doesn't mean that that's always going to be your preferred learning style. And one of the things that I have identified in my research is that when we are in autistic burnout, not only do our sensory sensitivities go to either one extreme of the spectrum or the other, it can either increase your sensory sensitivities to where everything is very, very intense. It can also do the absolute opposite, to where you're not sensing it, to where everything is sort of just this meh, middle of the road, nothing, or numb feeling. And a lot of times, that's one of the top 20 warning signs that I share. I have a free download on my website at socialautie.com that shares the top 20 warning signs you may be in autistic burnout. And that's a lot of the times where someone starts to notice that, oh gosh, either everything feels really big or everything just feels like nothing, like really numb. And when we've got those different learning styles, or when we start to identify what our preferred learning style is, it really helps us identify if things start to shift or change, and maybe what might be influencing that. So Mason, I'm really curious, what was the biggest thing or biggest factor in your life that's you noticed or would attribute to helping you gain more confidence?
I think what made that happen is because in the UK there's an organisation called the Mighty Schools Council, and that organisation have lots of different things, not just autism, like all different like special needs that offer support, and I'm a so-called like ambassador for the Mighty School Council, where my role is to raise awareness of autism and Crohn's disease, and I like to speak about them, and that kind of being an ambassador, because obviously I was young. I say I'm young when I was an ambassador, but that gave me confidence because it was something that I enjoy, and like speaking about some more, it gave me more confidence. And I always thought autism was a bad thing. I always thought it made me dumber, and then I noticed like something like a hobby like Doctor Who, I will know everything about it. And then it just takes practice. Like for maths, I might not be the best at maths, but the more I do it, the more I'll gain that confidence. So what helped was because originally I was at a mainstream school, and that didn't work out. The teachers wasn't understanding because there was instance where there was confusion at the mainstream school. So luckily I was only there a year, because it is hard to get into like a special school that support your needs, like autism, ADHD, and lots of different things around around the spectrum. So I went to a special school, and that was it really helped me. I wouldn't say I was confident straight away, because I was like the new kid. It was like January time as well. I joined, so it was pretty hard at first, but through the years, I think that it was really good. That helped me build my confidence. Like the people around me helping me boost it.
Having a place where you were able to put your talents and your passion and your skills and abilities to use to help serve others in your community and to raise awareness. That actually, Mason, is one of the biggest factors in going through the UnVeiling Method, which is what I teach to late identified autistics. When you're learning to unmask and really connect with that deeper question of, well, who am I? Who am I now that I know I'm autistic? Who am I now that I know more about myself? Because the biggest thing that we face, and part of the biggest contributing factor to that chronic cycle burnout trap that we get in, is that we've suppressed our true selves for so long to try and fit in, to not stand out, to not be picked on or bullied or made fun of. And one of the greatest places that I, for myself, found is a really good place to sort of start to reclaim your identity of who you are, is to serve others and to be a volunteer in your community and to do things that give you a purposeful passion in life. And it sounds like that is something that you found for yourself, Mason, and that's really beautiful.
Yeah, I think Carole, that I because with autism, I didn't know much about it myself at first, so I had to learn about what it was and how it affected me. So for saying that would be ask for help, and then eventually I suppose I thought about what other people would think of me, and then I decided I'm not that worried about that anymore. I'm more worried about I'm not worried if someone else's if I affect someone else, but I and then talking about it to different people, noticing there's lots of other people that have autism, not just me. It does help, and you see other people talking about their autism journeys and lots of things about autism, because there's so much to talk about. You could talk about sensory, you could talk about lots of different things, which is great, and it's nice to speak to people and seeing what they get up to.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that I teach. I have the communication ecosystem for NeuroDistinct humans, and I use the term NeuroDistinct versus neurodiverse. It was coined by my friend Tim Goldstein of the Neuro Cloud, and he's a Googler. He works at Google, and he came up with the term NeuroDistinct. And we did a whole episode last year, and it was really interesting because he and I talk about words and language. And when you're talking about the use of words and language in marketing, and one of the things that we do is advocates and raising awareness of what being autistic means. And you touched on that a minute ago, Mason, and it's not about what autism is, but it's what does being autistic look like, feel like, and show up like in my life? What is it to me? That's the really big question that people who are late identified and people who are autistic start to go through. And one of the things that I've put together in this is that we have a unique communication styles, but we also have unique relationship types based on our communication styles.
Yeah.
Because burnout, meltdowns, and shutdowns affect
Yeah.
our ability to and how we communicate and how we're able to communicate in those moments. And that can often influence and impact our relationships. And it's, those language and the terms that we use also impact how we feel about ourselves. So if we're neurodiverse or neurodivergent, if you're thinking about the word or part of the word divergent or diverse, it doesn't always deliver from a marketing standpoint as a positive,
Yeah.
Oh, they're divergent, right? Meaning they're moving themselves away from the crowd. They're not interested in being a part of it. but everyone wants to be distinct. Everyone wants to be unique and special. So I really love Tim Goldstein's term NeuroDistinct. So it's one that I use.
Yeah, I think it's a very nice term, because like it's like the first time I heard of that, Carol, and it's like
Oh, I'm so glad I got to share it with you
yeah.
for the first time, Mason.
yeah, it's good to hear. Like it's just it's another term which it is like like autism gets more I suppose you can't say that because not everyone still doesn't know about, because autism, I remember just before the pandemic, I went to do some work experience at a
Oh, yeah, I heard you talk about this with Vicky.
yeah
Oh my gosh. And I heard you say that. And I was
yeah.
like, what do you mean nobody that you talk
yeah.
knew what autism was?
That's it. I went into the
It's
factory and
mind-blowing.
they didn't know what it was, and I was shocked, and I had to explain, because I explained my Crohn's and autism, right? Crohn's in case I need to go to the toilet, and autism in case I'm not able to ask for help.
Right. And you know, I think it's such a big deal, and it's a really big part to kind of like park right here for a second, put a pin in it to talk about, because so many of us who are autistic, who are neurodistinct, have a lot of gut issues, from IBS to Crohn's to all types of things. Like, honestly, we have more conversations in the Mind Your Autistic Brain community, just one-to-one and in small groups, about our digestive issues and the things that happen, because it's not just our brains that are neurodistinct. As a result, our bodies are neurodistinct. So we tend to respond to different things in a different way. So, you know, if some person could eat this, or some person could drink this, or some person could take this particular medication and they respond well to it, we take it and we have a completely different response or reaction to it. You know, there's a lot, I think it was like 7 or 8% higher proportion of people on the autism spectrum have food intolerances and food allergies than the average population. So there's so many things that impact your quality of life as an autistic person, that if we're not talking about it and we're not sharing it, because, you know, hey, it's your bathroom routine, you know, and it's kind of embarrassing in private, then somebody's suffering in silence.
Yeah, I've heard that like a lot of people with autism do get like issues with the gut, and I sometimes do one day's that to do a bit linked, because I got diagnosed in 2009 for autism and 2017 for Crohn's. So even though they're quite apart, but I always do think if I did have early signs of Crohn's when I was younger, even though I didn't have any pain then, but I used to like this food, and then that changed when I got older. But it is like like with that like that situation when no one knew of autism or what it was, and I suppose that can be quite scary to go into a place where they didn't know anything at the first, but eventually they changed all what they did to fit the suitable people who are autistic, which I thought was great. Like they've made it a bit smaller now, so some people can go into little not as a crowded and big environment as it was. So it's great that they changed it, and they always want me to go back, but because of like my situation with having Crohn's and the medication I take is what cancer patients take, so it damages my immune system quite a bit. So I don't go back as much, and I haven't really been back since the pandemic, but I wouldn't mind going back, but it's not the ideal job for me. But if they would love me back, I wouldn't mind it. But because I'm into my
Hey, you never know.
football,
It just may not be in this season of your life. It may be in the next
maybe.
season, right?
Maybe. I suppose we have to wait and see. But yeah, it's like with the stuff you do, Carole, it's really good. Like I started my page back in 2020, so it was a kind of, I think the pandemic helped make one at the start, and eventually make a podcast, which can be a bit tricky at the start as well.
Oh, listen, my learning curve for everything from YouTube channel to a podcast to a Facebook group to business pages and websites and Instagram and social media content creation and course creation and all the stuff that goes into it, so that you can serve your community and be an advocate and a resource for people. It's a steep learning curve, and the best way to do it is just one step at a time. You try one thing and you get comfortable with it, and then you add the next thing. Trying to do it all at one time does not work.
Yeah.
That is overwhelming.
Yeah, it's like anything. You just gotta keep learning, like about different things, and the more you learn, the more you know. The more you know, the more you think you can do it, and you gain some more confidence.
Oh, absolutely. And that's one of the things that I think so many of us come to in late identified autistic life, is that we really have no confidence. We don't have any belief in our own skills and abilities, because for so long we didn't know why things seem so much harder for us. It's like, I'm doing exactly what everybody else is doing, but they seem to figure it out and I don't. Something's wrong with me. So we've internalized for decades thinking there's something wrong with us, when in reality, it's not. We're not broken. We're not defective. We're not getting it. It's just not our language. It's not speaking to us in a way that we understand. And once we have that understanding of ourselves and we start to identify like our learning styles, our communication styles, and heck, what our values are, what's important to us, and then being able to say, hey, these are the boundaries that I'm setting. Okay. That was a huge one, because boundaries weren't discussed growing up in my life. I'm 47, almost 48. I was born in 1974. So, boundaries discussion and, healthy boundaries and things like that, just with yourself and between you and other people, that wasn't discussed. And even now it's starting to be discussed more in classrooms and things like that in earlier childhood education, but there's still a huge gap. And for most of us in late identified life, when I start asking my community, hey, did you ever talk about boundaries growing up? Did anybody ever explain to you what they are and what a healthy boundary is? And people are like, no, what are you talking about? I'm like, don't worry, that was my exact same response. What are you talking about? Boundaries? I have no clue. The only boundary I knew was what my parents set. And that was, this is your curfew. You say, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, thank you, and please. You clean up your room, you do your chores. That was the boundary, right?
Yeah.
As far as most of us understand. But there's so much more to it. There's actually 7 areas of boundaries and 3 types of boundaries that we need to have in our lives. And one of the biggest boundaries that for most of us, we are unaware of, or that we breach most often, it's a time boundary. Setting a time boundary for ourselves. What is acceptable for us in our life? What serves us? What keeps us from going into burnout? And what helps keep our space, and somebody else's space, their space, so that we're not invading someone else's and someone else isn't invading and crossing and breaching ours. So it's a really big topic.
Yeah, I think it's a good topic to speak about, because it is hard to understand. Like, I can understand why other people that aren't autistic or haven't heard of it wouldn't understand it, because I suppose they wouldn't need to. But I do enjoy people who talk about autism if they don't have it themselves. Like, you have people out there who as a job they like raising awareness of it, and like now I class as it raising awareness of autism being a hobby, because you get like people you meet that you do some really good stuff with them. If it's not face to face, it'll be virtually, which is great, because you speak to people all over the world who have autism. And
that's right. I actually have people and clients in over 65 countries in Mind Your Autistic Brain that I serve. And that is the thing to recognize, is that, and I even have this really fantastic video if you guys want to go check it out. It's on YouTube and it's on Instagram, and it's what autism looks like. Because there are so many misconceptions somebody says, I've had someone actually say to me, hand to God, you are too pretty to be autistic. I'm like, what does that mean? What does that mean? Because, that my neurotype isn't going to be tattooed across my forehead in some way, right? And so I did a whole collaborative video with lots of people from the Mind Your Autistic Brain community. And I'm inviting everyone to participate and send in a 15-second clip if you would like to participate. And there's some rules that tell you exactly how to script it out and what to do, because we are all unique and we all look different. And there is no particular look to being autistic. It comes in every color, in every shape, in every sex, in every size, every country, every culture. And we are each beautiful and wonderful just as we are. And to be able to share our uniqueness with the rest of the world is how we elevate humanity. That's how we create a world that is embracing of all neurotypes. And that truly is my heart's desire.
Yeah, I think that sounds really fun. Just for anyone to take part in that, Carole.
Well, you can just hashtag what autism looks like, and you should see it right there from Mind Your Autistic Brain. And my account on Instagram is Social Autie. So if you guys want to go check it out and join in on the project, I would love for you to. I would love for you to send one in for yourself, Mason.
Yeah. Is there like a deadline at all?
Nope, there is no deadline. This is an open, and as soon as I collect enough to do another like 1 minute to 90-second video, I put them together and publish it.
Yeah. I think I'll do one as well, Carole.
Oh, fantastic!
Well,
thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been really nice to like talk to you, Carole. And like please continue all what you're doing, like raising awareness and teaching other people as well. Which is great, and it's what we do. It's what we enjoy, isn't it?
It sure is.
Thank you again, Carole.
Thanks for having me, Mason.